can't get any else.
No, it says, I was bringing out email, and then it never says get email. It just says like, have the. Yes.
Yeah, I thought they like couldn't get emails from outside sources, but
I use my personal email.
Oh, that's not good.
I did that. I tried. Oh, what is it?
How's word would be fair? Yeah, maybe just give us one.
That's $10,000.
Yeah. That's inconvenient for us. So
Yeah. Here.
did you guys touch that? They don't have 7 months notice before you test. It's $40.
It's not. They're already taking your money. It's like, what is that money going to? Administrative costs.
The CEO, it's a non-profit, right? The CEO of College Mark makes like $2 million. It's absurd. All right, so this 14, I wanted to go through 2 ways to see if I can. Wish I could like copy them. I'm really capable of that. So it's, what is it, the limit?
B minus
Hold on. That is not. As x approaches b,
B minus x over the square root of x.
Okay. So, 2 ways to do it. My guess is you guys mostly do the rationalizing. You multiply by the conjugate, like the root x plus root b. So let me go through that one just to have like another practice example. So really what I'm trying to do is get rid of these square roots. I'm going to multiply by the conjugate on the bottom. But if I do it on the bottom, I've got to do it on the top also. And then that leads to, on the top, I just have b minus x times the square root of x plus the square root of b. Like, don't distribute that because that makes it harder. And on the bottom, you're going to FOIL. So like that times that gives you x. That guy and that guy would cancel, right? And that'll give you negative b. We okay there? Okay, so it doesn't look like anything cancels now, but we can make it cancel. So if I had like 6 minus 4 over 4 minus 6, what is that? It's 2 over negative 2, it's negative 1, right? So another way I could do that, and there would be no reason to with just numbers, but what I could do is factor a negative 1 out of this. I'm just trying to show you that it works. If I factored a negative 1 out of this, then essentially what I did was divide those both by negative 1. And now in here, it would say negative 4 plus 6. So just like if you distribute it back through, negative 1 times this, wouldn't you get 4 minus 6, which is what we started with? And if I simplify this, don't I get the exact same answer? I still get negative 2, right? So I'm just trying to convince you that it works. And I'm going to need to use that for this problem up here. So x minus b and b minus x do not cancel. But if I kind of see the shortcut or see the little trick, I can rewrite, and you can rewrite the top or the bottom. I'm going to do the bottom, but there's no real reason. If I take a negative 1 out of x minus b, what's left on the inside? Right? Negative x plus b. And isn't negative x plus b the same thing as b minus x? So now they'll cancel. You got to see that trick, or you're just kind of stuck. So to me, that's the harder part of this method. And then once I get that, I have the limit as x approaches b of the square root of x plus the square root of b over negative 1. And now I can plug in b. So the square root of b plus the square root of b over negative 1. And if I were you, I would stop there. If it were a multiple choice, they would probably combine them and say no, that's good.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. -2 over root b. Questions on that one? That technique? Did anybody do it differently? Did anybody figure out a different way? What is it on the bottom?
It's the left. It's b minus x, square root of x, minus square root of b.
Wait, what?
You have it flipped.
Give me the top.
b minus x,
Oh, I see.
square root of x minus square root of b.
Okay. So, you know how if I have like x squared minus 49, that can factor into x plus 7, x minus 7. So, it's also true if I have like a squared minus b squared. That can factor into a plus, that's like the general rule, a plus b, a minus b. Well, just think about what you're doing. You're taking the square of the first term and putting it in front. Square of the first term, putting it in front. Square of the second term, putting it in the back. Square of the second term, putting it in the back, and then you put the plus minus. So, it's also true that if I have like a minus b, there's really not very often a reason to do this. But you could use difference of squares on it. And say, okay, that's the square root of a minus the square root of b. Are you saying what or what?
I said, wow.
Well, okay. Isn't this just applying that same rule in a different situation? So I'm going to take the square of the first term, put it in the front, square of the second term, put it in the back, and then you throw your plus minus. Do you want me to convince you that it works? You know, that times that gives me a. What would happen to these two terms? They go away, and then that would give me b. So we usually don't want to go from non-square roots to square roots. That's usually making our life more difficult. But there are sometimes it becomes an advantage, because then you can use it to like cancel something out. Do you want a second to try that problem now that I've shown you that?
Yeah.
Let's do that. I'll go through it in a second, but see if you can do it factoring with the factoring method. I mean, at the end of the day, you can still do it. I don't care which way. But the more you understand, the more tools you have in your tool belt. You know. Karen, thanks for putting your phone up. I know I can't.
It will always be up there with the rest of you.
You want to obliterate color.
Oh, oh, yeah. Guys, this random senior is coming for us. Shirley Timbers. Lock the door. Noah Douglas. No, it's so scary. It's gonna be like a like Godzilla. Just Noah. Just
So I can take the top and do the difference of squares. So I can factor that top into root b plus root x and root b minus root x. And I'm still stuck in that like negative, I'm off by a negative situation because these don't directly cancel right away. It is true that if you cancel things that are reversed like that, you're going to get -1 because of like the factoring process. So some people will just kind of jump to that, but I won't do that here. And again, you could switch whichever one you wanted, the top or the bottom. But on the bottom, if I factor out a -1, I would be left with negative root x and a positive cancel. And this is where I ended up last time too, like doing the other method, right? And then I can plug in and yeah.
Could you also just put like, negative root b plus root x and negative root b minus root x over all of that, and then you could cancel right across and have
That's freaking cool. Yeah, I like that. Can I erase this? So, when you take the square roots, you gotta, like, what are the square roots of 9? 3 and negative 3. So what are the square roots of b? Well, root b and negative root b, right? So I think this is what you're saying, right? Like instead of writing root b and root b, I'll write negative root b and negative root b. Because when I multiply these together, what do I get? I still get b. So then on the bottom, it kind of skips that step where I have to do the negative factoring one because now these two match up. And you can just jump to, that's cool. I like that. And then you can plug in and then get the same answer. It stops there. I guess there's kind of 3 ways, or 2.5. Any question on that one? All right, anything else from what was that, 1 7? Any other 1 7s I can do? I'm proud of you. Yeah, like you use that. Right?
No, I just want to hang up the poster.
Okay, so let's go to 1 9. And so there's only like, first of all, you can skip number 10. So you can cross out number 10. I'm not worried about it. There's only like 9 problems. So I guess I'm asking you guys, is it okay if I do the 2 in the notes? Even though you've already seen it, was it helpful if I go through them?
Sure.
Like a different perspective type of
Yes.
thing. And then I don't want to do 2 of the 9, then you'll get 7 problems. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'll do these 2 then. Which if you did the notes, you've already seen, but I'm sure I'll say it differently than the first one. I don't understand why this used to. Okay. So if f is a piecewise linear function, so linear is actually important. What does that mean, linear?
It's just like kind of great.
On a straight line.
It's a line. What does that mean about like the value?
That's no expenses.
There's a constant increment, so it goes up or down by like the same amount every time. So if you're going like 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, that's linear. If you're going 2, 5, 20, 100, that's curving way up. That's not a line. So that's going to matter in this problem. And we want to know, we want a situation where the limit as x approaches 5 does not exist. Well, when I see piecewise doesn't exist, what I'm thinking is they're going to have different values. So one piece, the limit's going to be one thing, the other piece, the limit will be some other y value, and then since they're not the same, and I wouldn't know which one to pick, I just say does not exist. So A is pretty straightforward. Like you just plug 5 into, sorry, I shouldn't say that, because I didn't even get this. So I plug 5 into the top piece, or the top road. I plug 5 into the bottom piece, or the bottom road, and I do get the same answer. So if I do get the same answer, is it true that the limit doesn't exist? It's not. So this could not be representative of the function because they're saying find something where the limit doesn't exist. In this case, the limit does exist because I got the same one. Let's jump to C because it's a little bit easier to understand than B. At x equals 5, does the limit exist? Okay, so hold on. Let's talk through it. What's the limit as x approaches 5 from the left? 4. From the right? 1. So overall, does it exist? No, because those are different numbers, right? So this is also a no. This one is a little tricky. So oh, my bad. I was thinking like does the limit exist? Yeah. Okay. This one's a little trickier. You have to remember that value when we're looking for the limit? It's a weird question. What are our thoughts on the actual y value when we're looking for the limit? Like if I'm asking for the limit as x approaches 3, do I care what the y value is at x equals 3? I don't. So what I was trying to ask was like, what are our thoughts? We don't care. That was my question. But so this does not matter. I don't care what the y value is at that spot. I just care what it looks like it's heading towards. So this is where the linear part matters. This, as the x value goes up, I can see the slope is 2 or negative 2. So it looks like it's heading toward a y value of 5 comma what? 4. Right? I don't know what happens at that spot. I don't care. The limit has nothing to do with the actual y value. Just what the y value is heading towards. If I do the same thing over here, so now our pattern is a little different. What y value does it look like it's heading toward if I look from that side? It would be 1, right? Because it's going down by 5 every time. So if from the left-hand side, so it's really like this, the limit as x approaches 5 from the left is 4. The limit as x approaches 5 from the right is 1. So the limit does not exist because those are different, and that would meet this qualification. Questions on that? Can I go over any part of that again? Explain it a different way again. Let's see. Okay. And then, there's 3 or 4 feet practice too. That's why I wanted to do these. And then number 2, these aren't too bad. One has a little easier than I thought, actually. I thought it was more to it, but it's not too bad. So, without a calculator, if you have a calculator, you can just graph this. But then this would probably be like the non-calculator portion of the AP test. 4 from the left. So you want to pick a y value, or sorry, as x approaches 4 from the left. So you want to pick an x value that's very close to 4, but just to the left. I think in the notes he used like 3.999 and 4.001 from the other side. You don't even have to get that like close to it. You can tell a little farther away. So you could use like 3.9 even, and just plug it in for x. And then we're gonna see what happens. So 3.9 minus 4 is negative 0.1, right? What's the absolute value of negative 0.1? It's 0.1. And then on the bottom, 3.9 minus 4 is negative 0.1. So what's my limit? Negative 1, yeah. Now I got like a triple equals. So it'll be negative 1. Take a second, and what if I ask from the right? Same function, but what if I don't shout it out loud? But if I ask that same thing from the right, process through that. So you would plug in, like I think the notes guy used 4.001. Use 4.01, and you can get away with 4.1. If I plug 4.1 into the top, what's the absolute value of 4.1 minus 4? Would be 0.1. If I plug 4.1 into the bottom, what is 4.1 minus 4? 0.1. So that'd be 1. So these are like, you get these step functions. So x equals 4 is here. And it's one of those that looks like this. This is 1, and this is negative 1. So you get like 2 steps. So from the right hand side, no, I did it backwards. The point remains the same, but I did it backwards. So the limit from the right was 1. The limit from the left was negative. Okay. So that's all I got. I would use this time to finish up 1.9, and then next week, I don't know if I'll always do 2 review days for a quiz. Probably just 1. are on the right foot. That's good. So there's a review in your book. I'll give you guys time in class to do on Monday, and then I've got another review that I'll give you Tuesday, and then your quiz will be Wednesday in class. I know stats was take home. Don't take this. We take them also. It's Wednesday. So we don't need notes too much for lunch. So nice. So today is 1-9. Monday review. Tuesday another review. I feel like it might be a little excessive, but again, I'd rather err on the side of giving you more time on last, especially for the first test. And then Wednesday quiz. Remember, the quiz only counts if it helps you. So if you bombed it, but then like you recovered by the time we took the test, because the test is going to have the same material plus 4, right? So if you do better on the test than you do on the quiz, I'll replace your quiz grade with your test. Quiz only counts if it helps. Yeah, we got a couple weeks left. So it's like, I think 20% of the AT test is so we should really be spending 20% of our time. We can go a little less because you guys had it last year, so we can go faster. So it's going to be a long chapter because I think it's 15 to 20%. Yeah.
So we don't have to find positive, we just have to find the negative, right?
You just have to find what it asks. I was just going through like, what if it asked this?
And then we just gotta like show our work. There's no like write on for the answer, write it on.
No, you're good. I mean, yeah. A lot of your choice will be multiple choice. A lot of your tests will be multiple choice. And you don't have to show your work. If you are showing your work, just write out the stuff that you do. Like show the 4.1 minus 4 over. What do you mean? Where you'll get different numbers. It's always going to come out to like 1 3. You're just basically it's always going to be the one. Like give the answers up.
Yeah, everyone is like,
Big 1 1 is funny. Yeah. Because you're going to end up with like 4.1 and 4.1.
What?
Just
That was
one of their positive.
No, I've never, I don't think I've ever noticed correctly on the right time.
But I don't think that applies to every single.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's all about where they have the. Well, maybe it does.
if it's from the left, is it always like an A?
I probably will see.
No, what if they flipped it to like the absolute value?
That's
4 minus X, that makes minus 4.
Keep me up.
Change it.
But still, the absolute value doesn't that make it?
Please. No. Unless you want justice.
But it's still on the bottom. Yeah.
Well, please.
Like your top, your absolute value for a lot of people. So basically, you got
Exactly. I got a car.
But I prefer we understand what we're doing rather than memorize.
Yeah, like that.
Yeah, you're gonna forget that like tomorrow.
Oh,
So you gotta understand what you're doing.
It looks like a soccer. There's actually more like good. Is there? If there's not for most of the houses, there isn't a secret.
Zach, I think now that I think about it, someone brought that up before. The little trick that you used. No, hold on. It was the 6th grader. I ended up going to Harvard.
well, we talked about that.
Oh, so you're a genius.
I'm not quite in 6th grade.
Still go to Harvard.
Close enough. It's a little late. Hey, close
Definitely
enough.
not out of my budget.
You say it's not like a
It's out of my
So
budget.
it's like definitely not.
Well, I mean,
Different sentence.
Oh,
Not like the one.
Is it so
I mean,
Imagine you're sitting here in class and next to you like Sweetie's legs.
And he's like,
Is it like cars?
He's reading everybody. He paid attention for like 2 minutes and then
What's the most
smoke every time.
That's so. He would smoke in class.
Duke is man,
He's a drunk great.
So even though they're both 70 grand, the average student pays 30.
It is
The private school is just about that much money.
Yes.
Which is